doing this, I need to think about it. Right. So what we need to do is render something. Now we have a bunch of different things we're rendering at the moment. The planet background is probably the thing that we're closest to in terms of the things that we're rendering that actually is relevant to us. So let's have a quick look at how we're doing that. So we grab the renderer. Obviously we've got a bunch of different matrices that we're doing here. Basically we want to render a set of sprites to a plane. I think that's what we want to do. Now it's very similar to a planet background render because we've got diffuse bitmaps, we've got normal bitmaps, we've got glow bitmaps. But it's not quite the same. In the same way that the GUI ship is also quite similar but not quite the same. Let's think about the GUI ship here. There what we're doing is we're actually saving the ship off to be rendered, which we don't actually need to do. Basically I need to think about whether or not to batch these draw calls. So ideally I kind of do want to batch them. They'll have different matrices. I don't really want to upload a whole matrix for every. I suppose I could. No, that's a lot of memory. I'm just trying to think. Do I want to upload an entire matrix, a whole matrix for these things? Do I want to do the matrix in software and then just upload the raw triangles, or do I want to do the matrix in hardware? I probably want to do it in hardware per vertex because it's only for 6 calls and it'll be effectively free. So the ship buffer. This is the thing that's actually grabbing. That's actually batching up the calls. That's because I'm batching up the GUI draw calls, because otherwise the GUI just renders like crazy. It's absolutely insane how much the GUI renders, and I really don't want it to render at that kind of rate. So yeah. Hopefully the connection is now fine. I'm kind of pressing on regardless. So I'm kind of hoping that at the very least Twitch is picking this up. If not, I'm sorry about that. Hopefully it's working. But if not, we'll just have to watch the live stream. Sorry, the archive. That's probably the thing to do if you can't actually get it working. Okay. Okay. So, right. I think we just need to create a new type of thing. We've got a planet to render and we've got a ship to render. Do we want to render it straight away? Probably not. We want to actually stick it in a buffer because we might have lots of ships. We don't want to render them all at the same time. So this ship buffer for bitmaps takes a ship buffer groups. That just takes a bunch of ship buffer groups. What decides whether we're in a group or not? We basically just grab the one for the bitmap collection, right? So the bitmap collection is the thing that's interesting. It's the ship. Yeah, because what we do is we render all of the ships of the same type at the same time, because that's a lot more efficient than just rendering them separately, because you have to switch in and out the textures. So I could do a similar thing to that. I don't want to render them at the same time as the GUI ships are rendered. I want to render them first. And that's quite important. Otherwise what will happen is the ships will render on top of the GUI, which is not what we want. So I'm going to have to use a similar thing to the ship buffer groups, but if I change this to ship buffer GUI groups, that's probably the answer. So if that's ship buffer GUI groups, let's find the code that relies on. This is going to be oh no, hang on, that's wrong. If I go back to that, it's whatever this thing. I don't mind having lots of this type of thing, but it's the thing that calls this ship buffer for bitmaps. It's the ship buffer groups that's the important thing. So if I change that ship buffer GUI groups, that's probably the answer. So let's see, where am I referring to this? Okay, so we have ship buffer GUI groups, ship buffer GUI groups, ship buffer GUI groups. Same here, same here. Okay, so now, make sure that compiles. I have a separate ship buffer GUI specifically for the GUI ship rendering. That's the picture of the ship you saw in the GUI a little while ago. So if that's the case, then I should also be able to just have a different one as well. Ship buffer GUI groups. Actually, is it really a ship buffer? It's not even really a ship buffer. It's just it's a sprite buffer. It's really, if you look at it, it's positions, texture offsets, and clips. It's basically a GUI. It's a sprite. It's a rectangle, a textured rectangle that you're drawing. It's not just a ship. It's really a renderable buffer. Yeah, I'm going to call it that. I know that everything is renderable, but renderable is a thing. It's a renderable entity buffer. That's what it is. That's better. Renderable entity buffer group. Haha, groups. There we go. That's the name. That's the name I want. Renderable entity buffer. Right. Okay. So that's better. So now that's not going to compile at all. Much better name though. Naming is the hardest problem in computer science. Renderable entity buffer. And then this one is a renderable entity buffer groups. And then what else we got? What else we got? Got a couple more. This is a renderable entity. I might have picked a bit of a longer name. Maybe I need to pick a different name. I like that name. The name is working for me. Yeah, same again. This is groups. I think that might work. Let's try it. Let's try that. Okay, undefined to identify ship buffer groups. That's because that's a renderable entity buffer group. That's the one. Okay, almost there. Unknown item. That's that one. Okay, one more. Yeah. Okay, so now those renderable entity buffers are a bit more repurposable. So I should be able to go back to the code here, which is doing the pushing, and then I should be able to say push render list. I want to render a entity. I'm just going to say space entity. Cool. And I'm going to set that bitmap collection index to be whatever this thing is. So I need to find the renderable. So it's all based on components, this, and this is just the entity ID. That'll assert if it can't find it, bitmap collection index, right? That gives the textures that I need, including all the glow textures, the tint textures, and everything like that. Actually, it doesn't have tint textures yet, but it will. Okay, so now we've rendered a space entity. That will not work because we have no idea what a space entity is. So we need to head to the renderer and add one. Okay, where are we? Render space entity, and we will also need to do struct render space entity. Now, interestingly enough, planet's background, I'm not sure, is using radius. Nope, that can go. Okay, so this is going to be bitmap collection index. We will also need a size. So we will, at this point, need a radius in meters. And the other thing we will need is a space plane. Now the plane basically decides the transformation matrix. It decides, are we rendering on the planet plane or are we rendering on the ship plane? By which I mean planets are much, much further away from the viewer than the ships because they're obviously much smaller. So I want a planet to take up most of the screen, but I obviously don't want a ship to be at the same scale as a planet because the ship would be tiny, tiny, and the planet would be huge. So that's not going to work. So we render those at slightly different planes. That's the idea. So depending on, it'll depend on which plane. We only have two planes, planets and ships, and depending on which plane, we'll add it to a different group when we actually get to it. Okay, so that's the space entity we're rendering. Space plane. What's wrong with that? Space plane, it's there. It's a new state. Oh, is renderer. That's annoying. Renderer is obviously quite early on in the build. Yeah, that's probably a bit too early. Let's pop it down there. Is that going to work? Probably not. No. Yeah, that's annoying. The space plane idea is really a renderer thing. I'm going to put that in the renderer. Yeah, it can go in here. I'm fine with that. And actually, it's a renderable plane, not a space plane, I think. Oh no, don't start dying again. Ah, sorry. Connection is generally being a bit annoying today. So sorry if you're having a problem connecting to the stream. I archive all of my videos on YouTube, so you will actually get a chance to watch it later, should you manage to not get Twitch to do what it needs to do. Let's see. Okay, right, so we now have a renderable plane. This is going well. So now we've added this renderer to our new renderer, new render type. This is not going to render because it's going to fail, because it doesn't actually know how to render a, whatever I called it, a space, render a space, what do I call it? Space entity. Okay, so we're going to probably take, let's think about this. We're going to take the space entity. Oops. Okay. And I can't do that. Ah, my Vimfoo is failing me. Okay. Sorry about that. That was horrendous. Okay. And then we're just going to grab the render space entity thing. Render space. It's just behind you. It's just behind you there. Right, okay. Offset. Okay. So we're going to render this thing, and we are going to decide what to do. Now, how does the planet background work? What we first do is we work out where we want the thing. So we work out a rotation, then we grab a shader, and then we stick it on there. I don't want to do that because I want to buffer these things. So what I really want to do is grab, which buffer am I using? Now that depends on the plane. So I need a ship buffer. No, it's not a ship buffer. Let's rename that as well. What is that thing? Oh yeah, did I not rename that? I thought I renamed that. No, I didn't rename it. It's a renderable entity buffer. Let's just try this. It does definitely need renaming. Oops, that was supposed to be command. Ship buffer visit the renderable entity buffer. Yep, compiled. Yep, cool, okay. Compiling is a bit slow today, it's kind of annoying. Right, so that means that I can grab, depending on the renderable entity buffer I want to basically, I don't want to use the ship buffer GUI groups, I want to use whichever plane we're on. Space plane buffers, and I want to take whatever the command says the plane is. Yeah, and then I want to basically do a different thing if, yeah, that is right. So basically what I'm doing, and this is an entity buffer. What I'm basically doing here is I'm figuring out how to ensure that these things are adequately batched up. So I'm basically stuffing all of these things inside a buffer, and then I'm going to render it in a minute. That's basically what I'm going to do. Now I don't have any space plane buffers at the moment, so I need to create those up here. Yep, so in the same way here I want to do plane renderable entity buffer, and I want to do space plane count. So basically I have one for each plane. Okay, and then push the struct on there. I actually want to push an array because I want to say it's going to be plane count. Okay, that's good. And then I will also need to initialize them because the render list isn't initialized. Which is kind of annoying. Okay, that's fine. So now what I need to do is see if that compiles, I guess. Space plane buffers. Okay, that should compile. So now what we should be doing is pushing, well, we're not quite yet. Plane count's not there. Where's the space plane? There it is. Plane null, plane count equals, oh, we've got a null plane. Interesting. Do we need a null plane? Not really. I don't think we need a null plane, because then we get the right number in count, and that's important to me. Okay. Oh, that's just a keyboard splurge. Okay, expected expression. Have I got that the wrong way around? Yes, I have, yeah. So that is actually count typed like that. Okay, what's next? Must be an initializer list. Oh yes, it will need to be. So we can just say that, can't we? Just use a double pointer. Okay. Why can't I do that? Oh, I need to... Basically... No, that will work. That will work. That's fine. I just need to use the address. Yeah. And yeah, here. Okay, so now we need to think about this thing. We need to say space plane. Right, so we need to do for plane index equals 0. We need to initialize the whole thing, basically. Oh, you got to love C. It does make this stuff difficult. Okay, we need to initialize that. And then let's just use braces everywhere. And then we need to say array count space plane buffers plane index group. And down here it needs to be space plane buffers plane index group. And I put a row T in there. Okay. Right. Oh yeah, row T. Yeah. Yeah, that's probably okay. Oops. Yeah, that's fine. Right, no match a function for call to renderable entity buffer because we need to pass the address. Okay, so now we've at least got to the point where we've got the entity buffer that we're dealing with, just like in the GUI ships. So now what we need to do is basically add a stack of vertices to the thing depending on its position, which we haven't actually done yet. So what I basically need to do here is copy what I've done in the GUI. But I don't need the clip. Clip is not necessary. Okay, so it's the same sort of thing for the GUI, except that it's position and the radius that's different. So basically I want a new rectangle, which is going to be R2 center. What I really want is center radius. And I want to say that this is the center point, which is the position of the thing on the screen, which is going to be whatever it says in the position, so it'll be the command P. It'll be P, let's say that's P, and then it'll be whatever the size is, so that's the command radius. Okay, now if that's the case, it's trivial for me then to do this. Cool. What that basically means is that what I'm doing here is I'm setting up 6 new vertices for this particular ship. I'm basically setting the position and the radius, and I'm saying that I want the 2 triangles to render for this particular ship to be these 2, and that's all that that's doing. So that's not too hard to do, and then I actually need to do the adding here. So add the new vertices. Okay. Great, so that's fine. So now what I should be able to do, I think I just need to define R2 center radius, which I don't think I've defined yet. Okay, no member named P. Actually, that's not going to be center, that's going to be center, let's spell it correctly. Yes, right, so render space entity doesn't have anything in it. That's true. It needs to have some sort of position. Now, this is where I need to think about this. How do we get that position when we render the thing? So we've got a grid and we've got an offset. Really, that position is going to be relative to the viewer. So it's going to depend on where the viewer is. Well, at the moment, all we're doing is we're just rendering the grid that we're in. We'll render a few more than that in a minute. The 500 meter grid that we're in, that's all we're rendering. So I could just use the offset and then make sure my matrix is set up so that it's in the right place. So I think that that's probably fine. So that means that when I render one of these things, which is here, we need to do a couple of things. So we need to render, instead of just putting one thing, render space entity command is push render space entity. And then command, okay, that's the bitmaps, but then we've got the command P is going to be the spatial, no, not the camera spatial, we want the renderable, no, the renderer doesn't have the spatial, we want the entities spatial. Yep, so this is actually camera spatial. And actually, I'm not sure what we use that for. Oh, we only use it to find out where we are looking at the moment. But we will actually have to use that to specify the offset, which we haven't thought about yet. We will need to definitely do that, but not yet. Okay, so let's see. So this is the entity spatial equals find spatial state, and then this is just the entity ID. Okay, so we grab the component that we need, and then we just set this spatial offset, or that'll be a spatial position offset. Great. So now we have the spatial position, which is the space position with the offset in the box, basically, that we're in. So that's fine. So that gives us that. The only thing that we don't have is the radius, which we do need for one of these space entity things. Radius in meters, and we also need the plane. And the plane comes from the renderer as well. So we do need to grab the renderable. We can't just cheat. Renderable entity renderable. Let's find it, and then we can say entity renderable, bit by collection index, and then we've got the position from the spatial, we need the plane from the renderable, which will be plane. I think it's got the plane in it. It should have. No, where's the plane coming from? Is that from the spatial? Okay, interesting. I think that's probably in the wrong place. It's not just the space. It's not just the renderable. It's going to be used for collision detection as well. So let's just put a to do in there. Not sure if that should end up in there or somewhere else, but at the moment I'm going to leave it in there because I'm not quite clear what to do with it. So we've got the spatial plane, we've got spatial position. The only other thing we're going to need is the size or radius. Radius in meters is the spatial radius in meters. Is that right? Let's see. Yes, just radius actually. Yeah, I'm going to change that to meters too. I like to be really specific about my naming, so I don't get that wrong, anything dumb like that. Okay, now everything's going to break because this should be radius in meters. No radius, that's right, that's because I changed it. Right, here we don't have something called spatial, it's an entity spatial. Same here, same here, same here. Okay, next one, no radius, that's because I've just changed it. R2 center radius, right, so in my maths, where's my R2? And what I really want to do is I want to create an R2 with a center and a radius, just to make my life easier. So that will be V2 center, and I want real 32 radius. Oops, maybe I should not have done that. And then I want R2 result to be R2 of center plus, this is going to be min, so center minus radius, yes, center plus radius. There we go, that should do it. Okay, can't take away a V2 and a radius. Well, that's rubbish. Why can't I take away a V2 and a radius? I should certainly be able to. Operator minus real 32b, and then that's a minus and a minus. There we go. And I can't do a plus now. That's also bogus. Let's just add that in. Forward, plus, plus, plus. Okay. Okay, cannot do R2. Why not? Why can't I just pass a min and a max? Dumb thing. That's what I want to do. Oh, I could just create it like this actually. Center minus radius, center plus radius. Aha! I could. That would be fine. Maybe. Possibly. We'll see. Yes, brilliant. Okay, so this is no longer a ship buffer. This is an entity buffer. Same for all of these. Okay, so let's have a quick look at this code to make sure that I haven't completely screwed it up. Okay, so we have a command P, command radius meters, right? So we have the size and we have the P. So that is going to give us triangles with the position, the correct position in space and dimensions in space for this thing, which is what we want. Now the question is, how are we going to draw them? At the moment we are not drawing them because the drawing happens a bit later when we batch them. But if we zoom down here, this is where we currently render the ship buffers. And I actually want to do a similar piece of code to this, but not quite the same. For example, the 32 sine angle actually could come right out. Oops. Is that in the right place? No, that's the wrong thing. Yeah, the sun angle at the moment on a ship is fixed. So it's quite similar to this, but it's not the same. So basically I want to grab all of that and I want to say draw the GUI triangles. Yeah, I definitely want to draw the GUI triangles after I've drawn the ships on the screen. So let's do that now. Okay, so this is going to be note draw the space artwork. Oh, space. Draw space. Okay, so now we need to just go through a couple of things. We need to go through the plane index, and then we also need to go through the group index based on those things. That's the first thing. So we need another, oops, yeah, there we go. That's correct. Okay, so now we create our vertex buffers and we stuff all of our stuff in them. So we do the positions, the texture offsets. We will not need clipping. Delete clipping. Clipping is for the GUI, for scrolling things, so you sometimes need to do a window. Oh god, that's a big switch case. Yes, it is. I'm kind of enjoying coding everything explicitly and having massively long methods. I've been coding for a long time, and I have kind of traditionally done a very test-driven development approach with languages like Ruby, and I've written very clean code, very tight code. When it's just you developing on it, the parameters are different for coding, and to be honest, I haven't found that this has hurt me yet. Of course, I will abstract this all out into methods when I'm happy with how it's working, but the render is really new code, so I don't want to screw around with it too much at this point. This is a massive method, and I'm fine with that at this point. Okay. So chip buffers, texture offsets, bitmap, collections, right. So now we find the collection we want. We just need the texture offsets. We don't want literal pixels. We don't want that matrix. We need to create a matrix based on the plane. So the matrix will need to be created here. So let's pick an example. We don't really want any of these. Okay, so what we need to think about is what we're going to display. Now at the moment what we could do is display, let's think about this. Basically we want to show everything on the screen, everything that we have. Just remember how this works. Left, right, bottom, top. So what I need is left, right, bottom, top in here. So what is left, right, and bottom, top? Basically, what is this is a matrix, plane M. This is a matrix that describes what the box is that I'm going to render into. If you're not familiar with rendering, what I've done is I've created triangles for the kind of world space that I've got based on space offset values, and also I've got the kind of massive grid in there, but I've also got two planes, a planet and a ship plane, one of which is massively zoomed out, the planet plane, and the other one, which is the ship plane, which is not quite so much zoomed out. So at this point, I'm just going to render the same for both. Now the planets will be huge, but the ships will be manageable. So basically, I kind of have to think how many meters do I want everything to be relative to. Now, I should have the camera spatial still at this point. There it is. I don't necessarily have it actually, so I'm just going to grab it again. That's fine. Yeah, so that's the thing that creates the whole thing. Okay, so at this point I've got the this is the camera spatial, so I know what offset the camera is at. Then what I can do is basically say I want to specify the camera to be the center point, and then I want to take off the based on the aspect of the screen. Need to think about this. I want to take off a little bit of the screen depending on what I want to see. So at the moment, what we could say is we will go maybe 100 meters. 100 meters is quite big. The ships are about 15 meters. Let's go 50 meters to the left. So let's say camera spatial. This has a position, which will be P. Actually, I'm interested in the offset at this point. So let's just grab that actually. V2 offset equals camera spatial space position offset. Okay, so let's go 100 meters to the left of the offset, 100 meters to the right, 100 meters top. This is 100 meter offset minus 100, and top is offset plus 100. My coordinate system is bottom left. So, and I've spent some time making sure that that's actually true. Okay, so now we've got a matrix which is going to basically work roughly in meters. Make this work for the screen aspect, whatever it happens to be. Our screen aspect is quite flexible. And also to ensure we have the right zoom level here. Okay, so that is going to be the matrix. Now this bit's straightforward. We can keep all of this, generates a vertex buffer, and then basically just stuffs in whatever's in the vertices that we've got. This is how I can render the whole thing at once. Then it creates the diffuse, normal, and glow textures. Sets a sun angle which is fixed, but I want to change that. Change to the real sun. Actually, we probably already have this. Day proportion. Where's day proportion coming from? This is already in the renderer. Let's just pop this here so we can use it again. Okay, that's this real sun. That's good. And then we've got draw array, so we draw the whole thing. We don't need vertex attribute array 2, and we want to delete. Do we need all of the vertex buffers? No, we only need 2 of them because we don't have any clipping. We will need coloring, but I'm not doing that yet, so I can fix that at the time. Okay, so that should, in theory, draw the things on the screen to the right scale. Well, it will draw the ships to the screen to the right scale, draw the planets. Huge! Right, no matching function. Candidate function requires 6 arguments. What have I missed? Got an extra 0 in there. Okay, no matching function called to ortho, real 32. Oh yeah, because I need to say offset x. Offset x, offset y. This is not just, this is a position. Offset y. Okay, oh yeah, which shader am I using? It'd help to have a shader in there we go. And we haven't actually written a shader yet. What should we call this shader? This shader is not index triangles, it is space entity, I suppose. Yeah, let's go with that. Now we may need to have to draw the ships and the planets separately with separate shaders. Right, so now we don't have any of those because we haven't got them yet. So but you know, we can draw we'll draw them all initially anyway. Right, so now I need to think about where this is used and just make sure I'm loading my shader correctly. No, it's this bit here. Yeah, so now I need to make sure I'm loading my shader. Why have I got extra spaces? I can't stand extra spaces. Okay, let's load the shader. Right, so this is impositions and texticals. That's what I need. I need all of those. Yes, that's fine. It's actually quite similar to a planet. That does make sense. Space entity. Now what do I need? Pass. Yeah, so that just the vertex shader and then the fragment shader. Vertex shader isn't going to do anything fancy with the vertices, but this is going to do something fancy. So I need to actually create a new space entity shader, which is going to look a lot like the ship. Where's the ship one? Is it Clip Sprite that I used? Yeah, interesting. I might just double check that. Where is GUI buffer? Where do I render the ships? The ship buffers. Clip Sprite. Yeah, I do use Clip Sprite. That's fine. Clip Sprite is where I'm rendering a ship or something like that, but to the screen itself for the GUI. Whereas this is now more, so it's like the schematic view and that kind of thing. This is actually rendering a game object. So space entity is what I need. I am going to need to grab probably the planet background fragment shader. Let's have a look at the planet background fragment shader. This is quite, no, not this one. No, because it's got a whole bunch of stuff in it for, well, crikey. This is interesting. So we are fudging the light direction for planets so that the Earth looks tilted. Otherwise it doesn't look right. And I don't necessarily want to do that for everything. Although actually it doesn't really matter. I'm not sure I care. I certainly don't need, I do need a number size. Need some thought. Need some thought. Okay, well if I save this as whatever I said, which is space entity, basically I've screwed around with the planet view on the main menu to make it look really cool. I should probably show you that because a number of you weren't here at the beginning. So let me just demonstrate, assuming it works. Yeah, so as you can see here, we have a really fancy main menu with the planet background. This is using the planet backgrounds fragment shader. It's pretty cool. You know, it's kind of, as you can see, the sun is slowly creeping over the Earth. It's got nice bloom and all of that stuff in it. But as you can see, I've tilted the Earth slightly or make it appear tilted so that the shadow looks right based on the Earth's tilt. So the problem that I've got is that this isn't necessarily going to work for actual planet entities, because planets and ships are going to need to be rendered separately. But I don't really want to write a whole new renderer for them at this point. So at this point I'm running right to do and say planets and ships probably they definitely will need different shader eventually. And it's not just down to which space plane they're in, it'll be much more complex than that, so I need to think about that. So this is the space entity. We don't have any clipping. Let's just have a quick look at the Clip Sprite one. It's quite similar but not quite the same. That's the position for the clipping. We don't need that one. So a whole bunch of this is to do with clipping, which we don't need to think about. Yeah, again, you see the planet is going to look weird if I try and, yeah, need some thought. I don't necessarily want to render the planet with the same glow as because it's got inherent glow in it. So either I use a different shader, or I pass in variables to this shader, which is probably is it the right thing to do? I don't really want to. I need to think. Okay, anyway, I'm going to leave it as it is now, but it's obviously wrong. To do need inherent, non-inherent glow for planets, but not for ships. So at the moment, I'm just going to add in whatever is in the glow map. Okay, so the whole point about inherent and non-inherent glow, I haven't at all explained that. Inherent glow is where you have like different widgets on the thing glowing, and a non-inherent glow is when the glow map doesn't actually generate any of its own glow. It's not like lights as such. Right, so what's the problem now? Oh, it passed. Oh, crikey. Goodness, it compiled. Surely it's all going to fail now. Yes, it does. Brilliant. Okay, so why are we trying to draw this thing? Oh yes, it's because we're trying to get the camera. And the camera doesn't have a spatial because the camera is set to a city. Yeah, so basically we're trying to draw space, but we can't draw space because the camera's not pointing at a spatial entity. We could point the camera at the planet, but at the moment it's kind of okay to point it at the city. Yeah, and actually here we could say, let's not actually find the camera. Let's do this. Camera spatial. So I'm 10 minutes over my time, I've noticed, because I'm having so much fun. I'm going to carry on for a little bit longer. Obviously, if you need to go, then do go, but you can do that at any time, so that's fine. If you have questions, though, I'm aware that questions is kind of nowish, so if you want to ask questions, please do. Use the Twitch channel for questions. That's probably the best way of getting hold of me. Okay, so we basically need to say if we can get the camera spatial, then we'll actually draw stuff. Otherwise, we won't. Okay, now this hopefully won't fail immediately. Should ignore the space view. Yeah, so this is a space view, but it's not like the main space view. This is just a little bit of a fudge, to be honest, to make it look nice for the main menu. And I'll change this to something when I do the demo for the Kickstarter, which is coming soon. Kickstarter, did a Kickstarter at the beginning of the year, wrong time of year to do it, and I didn't have a decent demo, so unfortunately it didn't work, although it gained an awful lot of traction and got press coverage and things like that. But I am doing another Kickstarter probably around mid-September. So as you can see, the game is I'm kind of putting it back together. I've pulled it apart and I'm putting it back together at the moment. Let's hire that ship. Now I need to go the spaceport. Let's talk to Wilbert. Hire a ship. Let's hire this one. Okay. Let's have a look at our ship and launch. Now I'm expecting this to crash immediately. It didn't crash, but it didn't do anything, so that's no good. So let's have a look and see whether or not we're actually doing anything here. So the first thing is, are we actually putting anything on here? Yes, we are. Good. So we should have a couple of different types of entities. We should be pushing the spaceship, and we should be pushing the planet behind it. So we have got both of those. So this entity ID here should be 720, which is our ship. And it's actually going backwards. I need to think about how I want to order these things. That's probably, the ordering probably doesn't matter at this point. I probably need to do the ordering based on the rendering, but I can figure that out later. Okay, so I'm going to push a render, find the spatial for it, and let's make sure we're doing sensible things here. So the command that we're adding, we've got a 15-meter ship. The position that we've added is 0.5, 0.5. That's interesting. So that means halfway through the entity. 0.5, 0.5 means we're halfway through this particular 500-meter grid, if that makes sense. So that seems reason. Oh, we actually haven't set it yet. Did I actually set it to what I was expecting? Let's just double check that. Come back. Radius in meters is what I was trying to look for, which I can't find from there. I need to find it from the entity spatial, which is this thing. Ah, that's because it's a planet. Yeah, that's going to be much bigger. That's fine. And the position is going to be whatever the grid number is and whatever the offset is. 0.5, 0.5. Yeah, fine. Okay, so that's fine. So that is working. So then, are we actually rendering these things? Render space entity. Is this now being called? Okay, so we're now getting the space entity. We're getting the command to render. This is the ship. Yeah, it's a small ship. Okay, so we're now grabbing the renderable entity buffer, and we are looking at our dimensions, which is minus 14.5. Ah, okay, interesting. Yeah, so this isn't going to work. So basically what we were doing is we were setting the size of this thing to be whatever the position is. So we need to upscale the position at this point to meters, basically, floating point meters. Which, is that the right thing? Yeah, I don't really want to work in radius in 500 meter offsets. That's just a bit strange. I think probably, yeah, I don't want to do it like that. So in here, when we get the offset, not that offset, not that one either. It's up here. This one. Yep. So really, what we want to say is we want to times that by space grid size. Now I don't think I set that anywhere, so I just need to head to the space stuff. Space the grid location. Space position. And actually here I just want to say define space grid size, and that's 500. Okay, so what that should do is it should, although it's not, do what I'm expecting it to do. Right, so do we have a times operator for a V2 yet? Let's see. Nope, so we need one. I know you could use templates. I've used templates in the past. They're so slow to compile. I don't want to use templates anymore. I'm done with templates for the moment. I'd much prefer to just write the methods as I need them. Okay, so having said that, what that should do if we zoom into here, hire that ship. We do need a faster way of doing this. I may have to set up some debug code just to throw me into space. Because I can't hire that one, it's too expensive. Because this is getting a bit annoying. Launch. Okay, so now we've rendered. Let's just make sure that that isn't working to start with. No, I can't see anything on there. Oh, is that a ship? Was that a ship? Did I just crash? No. That might be a ship. It's not really the center. Difficult to tell. It's definitely not the right size anyway, so let's just zoom into here. Okay, so we get the buffer, we get the dim. Now that dim should be, that command P should be now 250. Yeah, so the min is 235, and the max is 265. Yeah, so the ship radius is 15 meters. That's a problem too, because the size in meters is actually a diameter, not a radius. So when I set size in meters, which I think is set here, yeah, there it is. When we set the radius in meters, we actually want size in meters divided by 2. That's not a big deal. Oh, 2.0. That's not actually a big deal. I'm going to keep going because that's not the main problem. Okay, so now what we should do is we should be able to set a bunch of triangles. So let's just make sure that's happening. So we should have, yeah, 2, 3, 5. Yeah, I know this is all working. That's fine. That stuff's all going to be fine. So the interesting thing is when we get down to here. to our space entity. So yeah, we'll have a couple of those. Right, so now we want to use our new space entity program. We've got a camera spatial, so that's good. And we've got two planes. The camera spatial position offset is 0.5. Again, that needs to be 0.5 times something, doesn't it? Because that's just going to be 0.5, 0.5 at this point. So that needs to be times the space grid size. So that means that it's going to be, yeah, it's going to be completely wrong. Okay, space grid size offset. There we go. Right. This should, hopefully we're getting to the point where it should start working. And then that should go from minus, this will be at 250, 250, so that should be minus 150, plus 150. And then it should actually draw a bunch of stuff. Hopefully. There's nothing wrong with that code as far as I can see it. We're getting the bitmaps correctly. The bitmap is coming from the bitmap collections. Ooh. Yeah, that shouldn't be ship buffer. Oh, it's getting it from the wrong place. Huh. That's the wrong place. Yes, that's not good. Right, so what I actually need is the space plane buffers based on whatever plane I am on, which is the plane index. So it's actually trying to draw the GUI entities here. And this is just buffer. Give it a proper name. Okay, so this is entity buffer, ship buffer, entity buffer, entity buffer, entity buffer, entity buffer, entity buffer. Right, so that should now be getting the right buffers. So yeah, no wonder it isn't working, because it wasn't drawing anything, because there wasn't anything to draw. Simple as that. Because we weren't drawing anything on the GUI at that point, and it was looking in the wrong buffers. Let's just close that for a moment. Okay. Okay, just wait for that to generate. So, welcome if you've just joined. I'm kind of over my time, but I'm having fun. I'm building a renderer for the game, and I'm working on the space rendering code at the moment. This is brand new code. It's quite exciting. Unfortunately, I have to jump through the lots of hoops every time to make this happen, but I'm going to add some code pretty simply so that I don't have to keep hiring a ship every time. The main problem is that I end up playing the game rather than actually working on it. Okay, so launch this ship. Hey, there we go. That is a success. So that's exactly what I expected. So we have our ship, which is this tiny little ship there, tiny ship. And the reason that we have that there in flattened is because the matrix is square at the moment, so it's flattened based on the screen. Let's just make that full screen. Now, the reason that we've got a massive grey thing is because the planet is actually drawing at the same scale as the ship. So the planet is drawing planet-sized, absolutely huge. So that's exactly what I expected, which is really, really good. So that's great. So now I should be able to change the matrix based on the plane. Oops. So now I just need to tweak the matrices. Right, so instead of offset minus 100 plus 100, that's basically giving me a 200 meter wide screen, which is probably what I want, but I also need to figure out what the proportion is. Not the GUI to screen proportion. I need to divide the height by the width. That's what I want. So it's the screen dimensions. Yeah, that's basically the one I want. So where's my plane M? Okay, so what I need to do is get the screen proportions, which is the render list screen dim divided by the height divided by the width. that will give me basically 0.7, 0.8, something like that. And then I should be able to figure out how much my x and y should be out. So that should give me, this should be 100 times screen proportion. And this will be 100 times screen proportion. Now that 100 is basically, let's just factor that out, that is meters to show half meters to display equals 100. Yeah, so I need to minus half meters to display, plus half meters to display, and then the screen proportion will take care of this kind of scaling that across, if that makes sense. Okay, so that should give me a reasonable setup just for the plane, for the ship plane. Now with the other plane, I want to show a lot more than that. So if I just pull this out here, and I can set this, make this a plane count here, then I can say basically for the ship plane, let's just find that what those are, plane planet first. The ship plane will be 100 meters to display across. The planet plane will be much more than that, and I have no idea what the planet plane should be. Let's have a look at the planet data, because these are real. Let's have a look at this. These are real CSV values here. What's the biggest one? At the moment the biggest one's Earth. I kind of want it to take up most of the screen. So I'm thinking, what programming language? C. It's mostly C. It's really C++, but it's not actually much C++. I've done a lot of big C++ projects. I'm now I've decided that I don't want to ever work in C++ again, pretty much. It's straight C. Much prefer straight C. Okay, so I want this thing to take up most of the screen. So therefore, I'm kind of thinking maybe 60. Let's see, that's 6.3 thousand kilometers. What's that? 6,000 kilometers is the radius. So that's the radius. So I kind of want it to be about 6,000 kilometers. Yeah, like that. There we go. And then we can say real 32, half meters to display across. Just half meters equals half meters to display across, and then whatever the plane index is. So that gives us the ability to scale this based on which plane we're on. Whoops. So that should be, in theory, oh, for goodness sake. That should, in theory, be all the code I need in order to show the planets and the ships at different scales. But no, I've done something stupid. I don't know what I did there. That screen proportion. Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm very open to questions for those of you who've just joined. I'm very happy to continue to answer as many as I can. Oh, I posted this on Reddit earlier, so I probably just need to check the comments, make sure that I haven't got anything to reply to. It's always worth doing. No comments on there. No comments on there. Okay. Okay, on Twitters as well. No. Probably should also, like, you know, tweet that this is happening. Anyway, so we're going through the character generation, making choices about what our character should be and do. Right. Okay, let's go. Let's hire that ship. Chat to Wilbert again. Hire the ship. Hire the ship. Excellent. We've hired the Flashy Keith. I love that name. It's going to be sad when I have to... Yay! Awesome! That is really cool. That is roughly what I was expecting. Brilliant. So, yeah, we've now got fully square proportions, and we've got a ship. It's exactly the right place next to a planet. Need to think about this. I might want to change the scale depending on which planet you're looking at, because obviously this one is a small one, and if you went to Earth, it would obviously be much bigger. And it's a shame that it's small. I want it to look huge and impressive. But I need to think about that. And the problem is I can't change the scale easily because this is a seamless world. If I change the scale, what would happen is that how do I say this? That it would look weird everywhere. So I probably just need to pick a scale that's suitably imposing and go with that. But yeah, I'm really pleased with that. That's a really good start to the renderer. It kind of just worked as well, which is just awesome, which is always nice. It doesn't normally work for me. Sometimes it works like that. Sometimes it simply doesn't. But yeah, really, really pleased with that. Also, obviously the glow's in there as well. The ship is maybe a bit big. It's difficult to tell. I need to look at some other ships before I really know that. But yeah, it's looking good. It doesn't actually move yet. I need to put the physics back in. I was using a library for physics, but I'm actually going to roll my own because physics is easy for space. I don't really want to have the hassle of porting another library. I've been kind of catching the porting bug, and I've ported this to STL2 recently, which is quite cool. As you can see, the sun is actually moving across the planet as well, which is really nice. Although I think it's probably the sun is a little bit too small. If you look, the shadow doesn't look quite right yet. Oh, it kind of looks like you kind of got a crescent going on there. I suppose that's kind of all right, but it does look a bit flat, and I think that's because the umbra is wrong on the thing. Also, it doesn't look like there's any lighting on the ship, although there's bound to be actually. So I'm not quite sure why that's happening like that. I need to kind of advance time more quickly if I was going to do that. But yeah, that's basically the beginnings of the renderer. We've got the space renderer going back in right now, and now it works in full screen, which is very exciting. So I can play it full screen. Oh, this is going to be so awesome! I think that ship is a little bit big, but yeah, I think it needs a little bit of extra work. Oh, I'm getting quite excited. Okay, so what's next? Next is checking in. That's definitely next. So let me just close the game down. Did that exit cleanly? Yes, it did. Brilliant. So that's fine. So now what I try and do is commit pretty much every time I do something good. So that's the planet radiuses. Actually, that's just reformatting. I didn't actually change anything there, so I'll just say that reformat CSV. Check that in separately so that I can keep my diffs clearer. Right, that's me frigging the credits so that you can start with more. So no, I won't check that in. Right, this is the improvement that I made to the camera targeting ID stuff. This is, actually rendering the things. That's changing, that's the day proportion stuff. Yeah, that's adding a renderable space entity. Let's just have a look. That's the actual renderer for the space entities. That's fine. I always go through my diffs like this just to make sure I'm happy with them. You never know when you change something stupidly. That's a rename. Those are my two new operations. Yes, those look good to me. And that one, that's my new center radius, so I know that worked because we saw it. Yeah, that just making sure we get the right size. And yes, I changed the name of radius in meters. Added a grid size. Yes, not sure about that renderable component thing yet. Not going to do much with that yet. That's the new shader. Yeah, that's renames again. Yeah, this is improving the renderable plane, renaming, adding the space entity renderer type. Yeah, that's pretty good. Anything new? Yes, so I just need to add the shader in. I probably will want custom shaders for different things, but I'm going to go with the same one for the moment. It's amazing, it works pretty well. So I'm quite pleased with that. What am I not checking in? The only thing I'm not checking in is that credits hack, so that's fine. Okay, so this is now basic space renderer in. Woohoo! I can't actually add an exclamation mark on the command line, but I will add one by adding it in my editor. Oh, cool. So I'm going to push that up to the build server. People who have downloaded a beta copy and the press will have now actually got a new version. When the build server picks up that and kicks off, then their code will actually automatically update, which is pretty cool, to that new version, so they'll be able to see it straight away. That's kind of like my beta tester delivery stuff. If you're interested in being a beta tester, I'm going to be putting out, this is new, I haven't told anyone this yet, I'm going to be putting out a very quiet call for beta testers sometime over the summer. And if that's you, if you want to be part of that, the best thing to do is to join my mailing list on soltrader.net. If you go to that website, that will have a mailing list option there. Join the mailing list and you'll get invited to the beta test. It'll be first come, first served, sometime probably mid-end of August, something like that, when I've got the Windows build up and running. It's running on a Mac at the moment. It's actually very straightforward to port it to Windows. I just haven't done it yet. It's using SDL2, so that makes it quite easy, but all of the code for porting is actually just in one file now. So this file basically contains the only specific code for SDL2, only 400 lines. So all of the kind of interacting with the file system, anything you might need to port, apart from OpenGL, but I'm not worrying about that. It's an OpenGL game. But any kind of file system stuff, any kind of Windows-specific calls, anything like that, can all go into this file here, and I'll create one probably just for Windows so that I can do that. But yeah, that's really, really good. So I think the final thing that I'm going to do, I'm getting pretty tired, but I'm going to crack on for a little bit longer, is to try and hack it so that I can start in space. So I need to think about how to do that. So if I don't want to do it when start game, I just want to when's the earliest I can hack into this system to start in space? Probably a main menu option. So let's add in a new main menu option. Delete, which will be start in space debug. Debug start in space. Okay, so now when I run the game, that will give me a new debug option. Shouldn't do anything yet. Oh, it runs the help. That's because these are indexed. So that's fine. So in the game controller, when I look for show help, or is it? It'll be the menu panel. How do I process events? Push a message. I push a message, whatever the message is, and the message comes from the menu panel constructor. So where's that? Messages. Here we are. So now it's whatever the message is, which will be debug show start in space. I'm not sure where those are created. Debug start in space. So that will need to be create new history. It'll be an empty message. So it'll be message debug start in space. Okay, and then what I can do is go into create new history here. So I'll copy this code here. Okay, now I want to basically do a very similar thing to start launch ship. So I'm going to copy this code first. Here. So I don't need that. I want to close. Where does the main menu get hidden? Does it happen already? Does it close it? Yes, it does. Fine. So don't need to do that. Don't need to do any of this. Don't have a ship ID. Don't have a planet ID. So I'm going to need to make those up. So it looks like I'm going to need to delete that. Yeah, so I'm going to need to create a new ship and stuff it in space, which is actually quite easy to do. So let's just find a place where I create a new ship. This is the code that creates a new ship. What do I want to do here? I want to grab I'm thinking. Don't care about that. Okay, what I could do at this point is push a new message, which would be, let's push the launch ship message, and then so that I don't have to worry about actually launching the ship. Let the game do that. Because the camera ID will be set up to Earth anyway. So if I basically just create a new ship here, which is basically this code here, give it some stuff. So let's just pick a type. I'll just pick the first one. Nameable. Do I need to create all of these components? Probably, because of the GUI. The GUI will want them. Not hireable. Yeah, this is a real hack. I'm doing this deliberately. Because I want to just get a ship running. We don't need to add the hireable because it's not hireable. Not all ships are hireable anyway, so that's fine. But we do need an enterer because I kind of want us to be in it. Although when we actually want to display us, that will be a problem. So I need to put in a to-do. We don't have a character in the ship yet for this debug loop. This will mean that any code relying on a character present will fail. In the ship will fail. Basically, whoops. Basically, don't do it. Right. Okay, so now we're basically rendering that thing. We've got the ship type. That should all work. Or not. State, yeah. So that's actually state, that sort of state. It's a member variable on this thing, so. That's caused me probably more time than anything else, just screwing around with that name of that state variable. Arena. It doesn't really matter, this is debug code. I don't really care which arena it goes in. All the other ships go in the history arena, so I think it probably needs to be in the history arena. Oh yes, and the enterer. Why have we got an enterer? Enterer 2. Oh, it's moving the ship to the org ID. We don't need that. Don't want to move the ship anywhere. We actually want the ship to be outside. We do need an enterer. It needs to be able to go in something. Yeah, that's also state. History arena. Stuff on there. I need to rejig all my arenas, but I can do that another time. Same again. Same again. Any others? No. Ta-da! Okay, so in theory, that should create a new ship, stuff it in space. And it didn't. That's because the ship type was nil. And I'm, oh, no, not necessarily. Let's see. Ship type, null. Yeah, we don't have any ship types. So obviously we haven't created a new state. So where do the ship types get loaded? Let's see. Load ship types. Comes in there, which comes in from the create new state. So we should have created a state. I thought we created a state at this point. We should have ship types. Yeah, this happens on init game. So the state's definitely initialized. But hang on. Do we have a zeroth ship type? Yes, we do. That'll be why. 0, 1 is null. Okay, let's try again. Debug start in space. Yay! Although I can't see myself. Do I have a ship? Am I drawing me? It's certainly doing the right thing to add me. See again. It's whether I've got the right ship type. Oops. No, oh, for goodness sake. Anyway, let's see if this is actually going to work. Well, that's got something in it, so that's fine. So half meter should be, okay, this is the planet, which means that we did have two. Let's see. I don't see a ship there. I don't know about you, but I don't see a ship. Oh, did we add it to space? Well, we should have done. Oh, computer is failing. It's failing. Right. So we added the ship. We added a renderable. We said, go into space. We launched the ship. Yes, we did that. We closed everything if we did have it. And we found the position and we added the spatial to the ship. That should have worked. What I could do is, instead of looking for that, actually, I could just look for offset. Not the messages. I don't want the messages. I want the rendering. Rendering. Which bit do I want? I want this bit. I want to see what I've got in my location. Okay. Right. Yes, I have things. So, location. I should have two things in here. My ship. I have got two things. I've got entity 1 and entity 20. Fine. So there should be both there. So let's have a look. This one is going to be entity, this is entity 20. So this is the ship. It's got a radius of 7. It's quite small. Should still be there though. Collection index. What's the position? Yeah, so that should also be fine. I want to know why it's not drawing it. Why is it not drawing it? Yep, it's 250 meters, that's fine. So my ship is there. There's my planet. So this has now created a massive thing. Radius in meters is, ooh, 2. Ah yes, because it hasn't done it yet. Huge planet, right. So it's definitely poking it onto the list, but I just don't see it anywhere. It could be that the shader is failing me because of the lighting. Let's just see if that's the case. Let's just turn the lighting off for a minute. Reload. Oh, yeah, it's there. Maybe the lighting is wrong. Maybe the lighting is wrong. There it is. Okay, it's there. Now this is the thing I was saying about inherent glow. I'm not sure I want the planet to have that glow, but I do want the ship to have it. Interesting problem. That's really my HDR, and this is really my actual glow. Okay, that's fine. Anyway, I think that that's working, which means that I've got my debug code for jumping straight into space, so I can start screwing around with that. Obviously this isn't going to last forever. That's actually correct. No. Yes. Yes, yes. Cool. Any new code? No, that's fine. Okay, debug code to jump straight into space. Fine. Cool, I think that'll do for now. I'm a bit shattered. My kids are going to come home in a minute, so I think that's really good progress. Basically what we've managed to do is we've managed to get the code so that we can hire a ship, move into the ship, and actually launch into space, which is exactly what we wanted. So that's really cool. So just to remind you that the website for this game is soultrader.net. If you want to be on the beta list, I've announced this today. I'm just going to be taking beta testers sometime in the summer. Do join the mailing list on that website. Go to the website, sign up to the mailing list. It's as simple as that. Obviously, you can follow me on Twitch if you are kind of around. That's always an option. And also there's like me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter and all of that other good stuff, should you wish to. But yeah, it's been a pleasure streaming for you today. I feel like we've made really good progress with that rendering. And yeah, hopefully see you all again on the stream soon. Thanks.